this is the baseline kind of getting started. And she said, I'm not wanting to be able to draw photorealistically, but rather capture the essence of the personality shining through, but in a more realistic way than I currently paint. Painting is my focus, and I've spent very little time developing my drawing skills, but I've listened to you talk about how this will help me make my art better for 2 years. So now I'm going to give it a try. Yay, Lynn. So she set a timer, and she used some graphite, charcoal, and a blending stump. And she said, by the way, hair is hard. Okay. So I have those images up on my screen here. So now they should show up on the screen. You'll see them, and I'm going to be using a drawing tool. So first off, I want to note something that I like about how Lynn has some soft marks in here. So make sure my drawing stuff's on and ready and behaving. So something that's quite nice is Lynn is good at making soft transitions. She's using something called a blending stop. So if you don't know what that is, I'm going to kind of draw one. It's like a piece of paper that kind of almost looks like a pencil, but it's either pulp paper ground up and kind of pressed together, or it's a tortillion or a blending stomp. They're different slightly, or it's wrapped paper that's wrapped around over and over again to kind of look like a pencil. And you can use the tip or the sides of it to blend and create transitions between your values of your shading. So that's something I already see that Lynn, that's something she's kind of does naturally. That's part of what a baseline assessment is about. It's not about finishing an artwork. It's not about getting it all perfect. And the timer is to help create some pressure. So if you kind of feel confident in it, it adds a little stress, not too much, hopefully, to make sure that we know what you naturally incline to do, so that as a teacher, I can look at it and go, okay, so I can see this is stuff that Lynn typically does. And then we can talk about, are those things she wants to be doing, or does she want to be doing something else? And then what should we practice to be able to achieve those results that we're seeking? The other thing I would say that Lynn seems to do is she's very line heavy in her work. So definitely a lot of lines and kind of outlining to create the figure. It's clear to me that we started from a place of line and not value. So we know that line work is something that she is more confident in. Okay. What else would I say about this? Really nice kind of variations and values. She lets the white of her paper show up to be the highlights of this man's skin, which is really nice. And we could probably push some of our darks darker, but I don't think it's actually that important. It would be more about if we wanted to match the shadows of the whole face, you know, we could look at this figure and like, look, all of this part of his forehead is dark. And yes, there are highlights kind of that allow us to see the wrinkles of his forehead, but actually no part of that part of his forehead has white. We've got kind of white here. We've got some white on this side of his face. So for someone thinking about wanting more realism, but maybe not as concerned about being hyper realistic, I think studying value will be really important for Lynn. Really looking at light sources and how it falls on a face, right? Because if the shadow's here, right, this covers all of his forehead here. So all of this kind of shadow from here should be coming up into the forehead too. Now remember too, this is a baseline assessment, and when it's timed and you stop, often they're not even fully finished. When I do some of my baseline assessments, I might only have a quarter to a half of the page finished, and half of the face or whatever I'm drawing is outlined or barely started. It's not about a finished work. So sometimes when I'm sharing this, it's like, well, Lynn might be thinking, well, Carrie, I didn't get to that point yet. And that's totally fine. Again, it just shows me that, you know, lines and kind of laying things out was the priority and how you approach your drawing. So thinking about value more is something to be considering in general practice.